Welcome to those who are watching on our media, YouTube and Facebook and such as that. The podcast all going now, and so welcome everyone here. Just a few announcements for us. First of all, Ciro is the doctors said that it was not the cancer that was giving him problem. Apparently, his glands are not producing the way they're supposed to be producing. So we thank God for that. It's not the cancer. In fact, the tumors are shrinking, and the doctor actually congratulated him on that. And so we're very thankful for that. And hopefully within, we're going to give him time to get back on his feet. And his right now, he needs to get back on his feet and get back to work so he doesn't miss too many more days and have issues with that. And so, so Ciro, my brother, we want you to get well, and we're praying for you. We love you. We bless you. And Elsa, and that's another reason why that's where I was going. Elsa usually handles the children, and she's the class teacher, and so of course she's taking care of Ciro. So she's not with us today, and it's kind of hard when Mama's over here banging on the box, and Daddy's back there, running the computers, and Grandma is at home, and she didn't want to come to. No, I'm just kidding. She's listening, so I better be careful. Anyway, you didn't hear that, dear. Anyway, but Grandma's not here. She had open heart surgery about 6 weeks ago, and they're trying. Her heart's not quite clicking right. Okay, so they're adjusting medications and things like that, and between her and me, we spent the whole week at doctor's office this last week. So but she is doing better, and she's feeling better, but we just yes, thank you. So let's pray for all of these who are not doing well. Nellie is back in the hospital again in ICU. And so be praying for her as well. I lost a friend from high school, a good friend of mine. And then we worked together at the school for about 20 years. He was right down the hall from me, and he passed away from COVID. He's 2 years younger than me, and he passed away from COVID last week. And so it's just, these are hard times. These are difficult times. But they're sent to us by God for a reason. And that reason is to prepare us for what's ahead, what's coming. These are warning signs to us. God, he's not happy. He's not happy. So he's warning us. I often think of the book of Revelation when it says that he gave them the space to repent. He brought a plague. He brings plagues down upon the earth, and he gives the world a space, time to repent after that plague. It says, but they would not. But they would not. And that's the day, that's the things that are going on today that we're living in. So let's be in prayer for one another and be an encouragement to one another. Also today is Richard and Charity's anniversary. So, how long has it been? 84 years. Look at that. See, I was going to be mean. I was going to say, well, I asked Richard how long it had been, and he told me it's been 5 years, and it feels like 5 years. So, how time flies, right? Anyway, congratulations to them. So, very thankful for God's blessing on their family. So if you would, let's turn in Scripture to the parasha for this week, which is the Breshit, Genesis. Chapter 12 and verse 1. Avinu Malkeinu, our Father, our King, we come before you this morning, Father. We ask your blessing upon the teaching of this word. Father, may your Spirit be evident and present among us Give us understanding of these things, Father, that we might take these words and apply them to our lives, Father, that we might grow in our emunah, in our trust and our confidence in you, Father, that we would see you active in our lives. And so we ask your blessing. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, my rock and my salvation. Imru. Amen. All right. How's the sound, Josh? All right. All right. So lech lecha. Everyone say lech lecha, because it says Vayomer Adonai el Avram. Vayomer, and said Adonai el to Avram, lech lecha. So that's the name of the parsha. Lech lecha. Me artsecha umi molardecha umi beit avicha el haaretz asher arecha. And so Adonai says to Avram, get out. Get out. Lech, get out. Get. Vete. Right? Get out. Get out of here. Lecha, to you. Okay? Lecha means to you. So when you hear that echa, 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 it's yours, 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 to you, to you, to you. Okay? So a lot of times when we're going through the liturgy and we're doing the brachot, the blessings, and you'll hear it, vecha, vecha, vechanecha, toratecha, betecha. It's to yours, yours, yours. Okay, second person possessive. And so here he says, lech, get out, lecha, to you. I'm talking to you. I'm talking to you. Now, if you read the ending of chapter 11, the ending of chapter 11 is the ending of the parashat of Noah, the story of Noah. And the story of Noah does not end with the rainbow. Believe it or not. The story of Noah does not end with the rainbow. And by the way, I was warning you last week about how we are not to make the story of Noah to be some innocent little thing and making little cute little boats and little, animals sticking out and making it all a cute and nice thing for the kids. No, this is a dangerous thing. It's a warning. It's not a nice and cute story. It's about death and destruction. It's about the coming of judgment. And the rainbow, you'll excuse me, but the rainbow has been co-opted by a group that is anti-Torah, that is contrary to the word, the law of God. I make no bones about it. It is contrary. And it is something to me that they have co-opted the very sign, not of love and peace, but the very sign of their destruction. Because the rainbow actually is not a sign of peace. It is not a sign of love. How is a rainbow made? Light diffused. It is the diffusion of light. You see, light in its simplest form is white. But light can be diffused. That is, it can be broken down into different wavelengths. And those different wavelengths create in the human eye different colors. What is God saying with all of this? What was about the rainbow? The diffusion of the light, the scattering of the light into its different wavelengths, rather than the pure white light. Because you see, what happens to a comet or an asteroid or a spacecraft or anything else, even this planet, if we were to go straight into the light of the sun? We'd be destroyed. We cannot handle that. The sun is but an example to us. They tell us that skin cancer is on the increase today. One of the reasons why skin cancer is on the increase, and this is why, by the way, the life of man, of humanity, has been shortened, because if you remember, they were living close to 1,000 years. I saw an article the other day from the Science magazine concerning the fact that humanity actually can live a very long time. We have within us the ability, the capability. Do you know why we do not? Because of the sun. Because the sun is shooting gamma rays in all directions. And although some of those rays are stopped by the atmosphere above us and around us, not all of them are caught. And these gamma rays, they're worse than X-rays. X-rays will stop at a certain point, but the gamma rays go straight through you, doing damage to your biological functions, to your cells, to your genetics, to your DNA, all of these things. And so the cells having to reproduce and reproduce and reproduce. I have diabetes. How did I get diabetes? Because my pancreas quit working. Because it had put out so much insulin and so much insulin and so much insulin that eventually it just said, forget it. This guy's never going to stop. And it quit. Now, thankfully, the doctors got it going again with medications. And so my pancreas works somewhat, and my cells work better, a little better now with medication, accepting the sugar. But you see, just like that, the gamma rays hitting our bodies, constantly flowing through us, coming out of the sun. And by the way, being under a roof does not protect you, because it goes straight through the roof. Nothing stops the gamma ray. It goes through everything. And so even right now, as you're sitting here, you're being hit by these rays from the sun. It doesn't matter if this is why you can get sunburn even on a cloudy day. And so you'll remember then that from Adam to Noah, the people lived a very long time. And so the ending of Noah, I was telling you about the rainbow. The rainbow is a sign of diffused light. You see, the light of God. The sun is but an example of the light of God to us. And as you cannot hardly stand to be out in the sun in its pure light for very long, you cannot look directly at it without it doing damage to you. Can you imagine what it is to be in the very light, in the very essence of God Himself, who is righteous and just and holy and pure? This is the kavod, what is called the glory of God, the Shekinah, which was so warm that it was able to keep over 1 million people warm and comfortable at night. The flames so bright that it would take this encampment of over 1.5 million people and shine enough to give them light even into their tents. Can you imagine that? The Shekinah, the kavod, the glory of God. And so it is that to come into the very presence of God, we need to be careful, when we're asking to show us his glory. Remember that Moshe asked him, show me yourself, reveal yourself to me. And he told Moshe, I cannot, because you would not continue to exist if I revealed the totality of myself to you. It would consume you. This is why God does not reveal himself, but in small and even minute amounts to us, because we could not handle the revelation of God much more than what he shows to us now. I mean, people literally die of heart attacks when fearful things happen to them. Hurricanes come through and more people die of heart attacks than actually die from the hurricane. Earthquakes and such as that. We could not handle the glory of God. And so he came forth after the flood, and he shone forth in his brilliance enough sufficiently that it was drying up very rapidly. Within a year's time, it dried up all of this water on the earth that had covered to the highest mountain. And he was working and reforming the earth, redoing the continents and all of these things. And then, when he was finished with all of that, then he told Noah, you may come out now. Like playing hide and seek, right? Ready or not. And you can come out now, like hiding a present. All right, we've redone everything. When Noah came out, it wasn't all muddy and stinky, I don't know what people think. But he had redone the earth, and all the trees were back growing again, the flowers, the grass, everything was ready for them to reoccupy the earth. And so they came out of the ark, and there Noah sees in the sky, there he sees the rainbow, which is the light of God, but not in its completeness, not in its perfection, not in its absoluteness. It's diffused. Because Noah would not be able to handle the full light of God. Even as Moshe could not, so God put him in a cave and showed him only the glory of the back of himself. And as he passed by, the light, the brilliance of this light, so filled the cave where God had put Moshe, that Moshe himself, came out of the cave glowing as though he had been irradiated, as though he were radioactive. So much so that he frightened the people when he came down off of the mountain. And for a while he had to wear a veil over his face. And yet he glowed, and they could see the glow. That is what it is to be in the very presence of God. And if we are not prepared for it, it will kill us. It will consume us. It will consume us. The story is told of 3 of our sages who went into a meditation state of the name of God. And each one was lifted. His soul was lifted up into the heavens, even as we read of Shaul, the Apostle Paul, and how he was taken into the 3rd heaven. And each of these rabbis ascended into the heaven. The first rabbi, he was received, and he shouted with joy and gladness. The second rabbi went mad, insane with it all. He couldn't handle it. The third rabbi, the heavens opened up to him, and he was gone. He was dead. It killed him. You see, what effect would truly seeing the heavens open and seeing the glory of God in its fullness and its completeness and its purity, what effect would it have on you, on me? These are our sages. These are our fathers. And even among the Talmidim, even among the disciples who saw the heavens opened before they were removed from this earth, they were stricken down as dead men. Yochanan, John says that he fell as a dead man. When Yeshua was raised from the dead, and it said that the soldiers that were outside the tomb, that they all fainted away, that they fell as dead men. The very glory of God entered that tomb and burst forth and brought the body of Yeshua Mashiach back alive again. And those who were guarding outside the tomb fell down as though they were dead. Because it is a fearful thing to fall into the hands of a living God. So rather than giving to Noach the full life, he puts a diffuser in place. Why? Because humanity would not be able to handle the fullness of the glory. This is why it is said in the Besorot, in the Gospels, that this glory was within Yeshua, but he hid it. He dimmed it. And only on occasion did it burst forth. One of them, when he was up on the mount and there appeared with him, he took with him Kepha, Yaakov, and Yochanan. The three were up there with him. And there appeared with him Moshe and Eliyahu. And it said that when the Talmidim saw that he was glowing with this brightness, with this robe of righteousness, of whiteness, that they could barely stand the sight of it. And after Moshe and Eliyahu ascend back to Hashem, that Kepha wants to build Sukkot up there on the mountain. And Yeshua forbids it. Shh. Don't tell anybody. You saw that. That's between you and me. By the way, let me say something. Sometimes God gives to us dreams and visions and understandings. Let me share something with you. Because people come to me and they tell me, man, I just have to share with you, God gave me this dream. No, do not share it with me. Don't share it with other people. That's for you. That's like when my girlfriend, she's my wife now, don't get excited. My girlfriend would send me letters. Do I share those letters with you? Do I share those letters with you? No, in fact, I would be very upset if you were reading my letters from my girlfriend, my wife. This is a message from the beloved to you. This is special information he's sharing with you, unless he tells you to go and tell somebody. Because not everything that God gives to me is for your benefit. Sometimes I'll be out there walking down the road and this magnificent sunset will be there. And I'll be there and I want to take a picture of it. And man, I forgot my camera. I forgot my phone. Whatever. This has happened to me. And then you know what I say to myself? That's okay. God sent this sunset to you. It's for you. Maybe he didn't want to share this necessarily with everybody else. He's just sharing this with you. This is a moment with you. Sometimes you have those spine tingly moments and the hair stands up on the back of your head and you get the chills and you feel the very presence of God walking by. And you want to go and tell everybody, but no, this is your fellowship. This is your relationship with God. He's sharing an essence of himself with you. Be thankful for that. And allow that to pick up your day. To pick up your moment. Give you hope. Give you some peace. My mother told me. She's going to be 98 years old in a few days. And she's been telling me she's been dreaming of Dad. Dad passed away 20-some years ago. And for the last several weeks, when I go in, she'll tell me, I dreamed of Dad last night. I walked in a couple of days ago. She didn't tell me that. She sat there. She had the most beautiful smile on her face. And she said, hey, you know what? I dreamed of heaven last night. And it kind of hit me because, she's 98 years old. She's dreaming of Dad and she's dreaming of heaven. It tells me she's getting ready. That the Lord is preparing her. And she doesn't mind. She said, I dreamed of heaven last night. I said, oh. She said, I woke up so peaceful. A peace I've never experienced before. God gives us those precious moments. To fill us with Him. His goodness, His peace, His love, His holiness. Right. And so what is this rainbow? This symbol. Remember what he tells Noah. He says that the rainbow is a symbol that he would never again destroy the world by water. But he does not say he will never again destroy the world. You see what the rainbow is. Every time you see a rainbow, it is a reminder to you. What do I mean, reminder? So when my oldest son, Stephen, was a little child going to kindergarten, he's not here. Going to kindergarten. And one day I picked him up from kindergarten and the teacher put her head in the door and said, Mr. King, we're having some problems with Stephen. I said, oh. And she said, yes, sir, that he just has a hard time staying in his seat. He gets up and he walks around and he's talking to the other students and his work is already done. He's very good about that. But he won't stay in his seat. And he's talking and he's kind of disrupting the class because he's already done. So I told her, don't worry about it, ma'am. We'll take care of it. So we got home. I sat Stephen down on the chair and I said, son, is this true what the teacher is saying? You're walking around and disrupting the class and things like that? And he said, yes, sir. I said, and she told you how many times? 4, 5, 3, 2, 3, 5. And I said, well, it's not going to happen anymore. And we had one of those wooden carving boards that has a handle on it, and it had broken, got wet, and it broke. 2 ends came off of it, made a nice little paddle. And he got 3 whacks on the backside. The next day, The teacher stuck her head in the door of the car and she said, Stephen was just absolutely wonderful today. And Stephen came over and we in the front seat, and back then we didn't have all the seat belt laws and everything like that, and it was just a bench seat. And so he came over and he put his arm around me like this, and we started driving home. And we got out of town a ways, and Stephen said, Dad, you know what? I said, what? He said, you know why I was good today? And I said, why were you good today? He said, because every time I sat down, I could feel the paddle. And he said, it reminded me to stay in my seat. And I gave him a high five. Good boy, son. You understand. You learn. That's what it was all about. That's the rainbow. The rainbow is the paddling to remind you to stay in your seat. The rainbow is a reminder. Every time you see a rainbow, it is a reminder to you, listen, at one time because of these sins, God flooded the entire world and he destroyed every human being except for 8. Every animal except for the ones in the ark. And he says, I will do it again, but the next time it will not be with water. It will be with the full-fledged fury of a holy God with fire. You see, the rainbow is a sign of what we call deferred. Everyone say deferred adjudication. What is deferred adjudication? Well, one day I'm driving down the road a little too fast. And that little black and white car gets behind me, turns on the candy colored lights, and my heart sinks. So I pull over. He pulls over right behind me. And he gives me a piece of paper that tells me I need to appear in front of a judge at a certain time on a certain day. So I go into that judge. I have the right to ask the judge to defer, to put off my judgment. And so the judge will check my record, and if I haven't been bad except for this one time, there's a very good chance that he will do it. What deferred adjudication is to put off, defer adjudication, the judgment. To push back the judgment, not forever, unless I maintain my goodness, my behavior, my obedience to the laws. But if they catch me speeding again, in other words, I don't have to pay a fine, it doesn't go on my record, it's put off. But if within the next 3 years they catch me speeding again, not only will I pay the second speeding ticket, they will go back and reattach the first speeding ticket, and I have to pay both fines, and both of them will be on my record. So that rainbow in the sky is a reminder that God did not judge the earth according to the way he could have, but rather he was merciful on the earth in withholding some of the judgment. But it is a warning to us that if we go back to the way things were before Noah, in the days of Noah, then he will remove the deferment and he will bring on the full adjudication. Yeshua warns us about this in Matthew 24 when he says, as it was in the days of Noah, so it shall be in the days of the coming of the Son of Man. What? They're living that way. They're living as usual. They're back into their sin. They're back into their hatred. They're back in killing everyone. They're back into their sexual fornication and predation. And they're back into all of this kind of stuff. And it's warfare and rumors of warfare. All of these things. And people are lying and cheating one another. Being mean and hateful to one another. You see, the whole purpose of Torah is this, that we might learn how to love God with all of our heart, all of our soul, all of our strength, and how to love my neighbor as myself. But you see, we quit teaching Torah. If the Torah wasn't for us, and it's not necessary. Well, you look at society today. And the next time you go out after a rainstorm and you see that rainbow in the sky, that's not a nice, cute little, that's telling you, that's a warning to you. Look, I've already deferred my adjudication. But the adjudication is coming. So understand that the rainbow is not this nice, cute little icon, but rather it is a warning to us of what is coming. This time not with water, but with the purity and the holiness of fire which burns away all of the dross, all of the trash, all of the wood and hay and stubble, and will only leave behind what you have done for Hashem and for His glory. Now, one more thing to set the scene. We won't be much longer, but one more thing to set the scene for you is this. So you have Noah. Now, the next story here in chapter 12, you have Avram and Sarai, Abraham and Sarah. And we tend to think of them as being separate. They're different stories. And so here you have the life of Noah, and that story ends with the rainbow, whatever, and Noah lived 100, however many 100 years, and he died. And then it gives you the generation, Toldot. Everyone say Toldot? Toldot means generation. So he gives the generations of Noah through the three sons, Ham, Shem, and Yafet. So Ham becomes the father of Cush. And Cush are the peoples who go into Africa. Some go to the east as well, but basically they go into Africa and to the south. And these are the Cushites. Then you have Shem. Shem is the father of the Shemites, or the Semitic families. The Semitic families would consist of the Jews, the Arabs, the Jordanians, Moab, Edom, these people. And then through Ishmael, Saudi Arabia and Qatar and all of those groups down there. These are all actually children of Avraham. Practically all of the Middle East, from Israel and Jordan all the way down, are the children of Avraham through Yitzhak and Ishmael. And then you have Yafet. Yafet went north and mostly to the west. And so these would be basically the European nations, Yafet. Gomer, Ashkenaz, Mag, Magog. These are all the nations from Yafet. They basically go. So this is Russia, and from the Uzbekistans and all across that plain into Turkey, Anatolia, Greece, Rome, Spain, the Gauls, which is France, the Celtics, the Teutons, which are the German tribes, the Vikings, the Danes, all of that. That's all Yafet. And so we basically have this idea, we have this idea that you have this story of Noah, but he was long, long, long ago. And then we have the story of Avraham, who was not so long ago. And then the story of Moshe, who's even less long ago, and David and all, and we kind of have this timeline. What a lot of people do not understand, listen to me, is that Avraham was alive in the days of Noah. Noah and Avraham were alive at the same time. In fact, when Noah died, Avraham was actually 54 years old. That his son Shem only died shortly before Avraham died. And this Shem, we find him in the story of Avraham and his war against the kings. Because after Avraham defeats, remember that Lot is captured, taken prisoner, and his family taken prisoner. And after he's captured, Avraham gives chase, routs the kings, retakes Lot, his nephew, and the family, brings them back. And where does he bring them back to? Jerusalem. And who does he meet there at Jerusalem? And he pays a tithe to this one called Melchizedek. Melchizedek. Melchi means the king, Tzedek, of righteousness. Who is none other than Shem, the son of Noah. But he's called Melchizedek, and when Yeshua comes, he comes in the form, when he comes back as king of the world, as Messiah, as the reigning king of the world, he comes back, we're told, as Melchizedek. But the original Melchizedek, before whom Avraham paid his tithes, is Shem. And our sages tell us that Shem, that Avraham sat at the feet of Shem. That Yitzhak and even Yaakov sat at the feet of Shem. Think about it. He was their great-grandfather. Why would they not? They are Semitics. They are Shemites. Now here, Adonai said to Avram, Lech lecha. Get yourself out. What is going on here? Why is God insistent that they get out? Well, because, imagine this, God floods the entire world, kills everybody, except for Noah, Ham, Shem, Yafet, and their wives, 8 people. They come out. Now, I've heard people say evil things about Noah. Because what's the first story of Noah when he comes out? He offers his sacrifices, and then the next story is what? He gets drunk. He plants a vineyard, he harvests the grapes, and he gets himself a ripoff. He gets drunk. Plastered. See? You shouldn't drink alcohol. Look at Noah. I'm going to tell you something, friend. Even among my Baptist brethren and others such, if you had witnessed what Noah had witnessed, you had heard what he heard, you had seen what he had seen, you would have put one on as well. Can you imagine hearing the cries of the people outside the ark, screeching and screaming and yelling and beating on the side of the ark to let them in, and hearing them as they gurgle down to the bottom, hearing them, hearing the water slosh, hearing them, and then hearing less of them and less of them and less of them, until finally there's one last pound and one last beat and one last scratch and one last scream. And every human being on earth is dead, and every animal. And it's just the loneliness of those few animals with him in the ark and those 7 other people. I'll tell you, I'd be very tempted to try to forget. However I could. There are things in my life that I wish I could forget. Don't be so hard on it. That's God's place. Don't be so hard on that Noah who you see walking down the street. Their equilibrium's a little messed up, and they're stumbling around a little bit, and everything's not so straight, and they're talking, they're walking. There's no reason for us to strike them down. Because the truth is, some of us have been there, and some of us would be there if we had walked in their shoes and gone through the things. Don't be so hard on that Rachav that you see walking down the street. Her innocence gone. Trying to earn a living with what she thinks is all that she has to offer. And she's destroyed her life. Have pity on her the way God has had pity on you. Have mercy on her the way God has shown you mercy. That drunk, have mercy on him. Don't laugh at him. Don't make fun of him. And don't disdain him. He is a human being. He has a spark of the divine within him. He is a human being who has the breath of God within him. Love him as your brother and understand that if you had been down the road he's been down, perhaps you also would be tipping the bottle a bit. Perhaps also you would be putting things in your arm or by mouth to help you forget the pain and the emptiness that has been your life. The old hymn says, rescue the perishing, care for the dying. Yeshua is merciful. Yeshua will save. There is not a soul living in your home or living in your neighborhood or living in this town or in this valley. There is not a soul in this world that Yeshua will not reach himself down, will not stoop down to lift that person up and save them. And we say that we are his Talmidim. We say that we are his disciples. We say that we are his followers. Whether you go by the name Christian or you go by the name Messianic, it means the same thing, that you are a follower of Yeshua of Nazareth. You are a follower of the Nazarene. By the way, that's what they call the followers of Jesus even in Israel to this day, to this very day. They call them the Nazarenes, the followers of the Nazarene, that Nazarene. When we are tempted to be judgmental of the people around us, remind ourselves that the only reason why we are not there in their shoes, in their place, living the kind of lives that they're living, is because God has shown fit to have grace and mercy upon me. And that he has shown me the light, and I have been able to see the light. And someone flipped the switches, the attributes of God on within my life, so that I understand mercy and grace and kindness and justice and holiness and truth and knowledge and wisdom. These are the attributes of God that he has bestowed upon every human being, you see. This is what it means to be created in the image of God. But you see, that person walking down the street out there, no one has flipped on those switches in their heart. And maybe that's what you're supposed to be doing. Is going out there and flipping on switches in people's hearts and lives. How do you flip on those switches? By demonstrating it in front of them. Even as we say that Yeshua is the living Torah. He lived Torah before us. He showed us how to live it. That flipped on the switches. And someone was living a right life in front of you, and they flipped on the switches. By showing you, by demonstrating for you what it is to be an obedient child of God, to be faithful and trustworthy. They showed you what it is to be kind, to be loving, to have mercy and to have grace, the same that God has shown to you. And so now it is for you to go out into this world, into these streets, into your neighborhood, and for you to share, to flip on the switches of the people around you. You see, that's what this is all about. That's why I'm here. I'm not here to wear a talit in front of you, or to wear my kippah. It's not a show. We don't have a shofar up here just for show. All of this is not for show. That's my bald area covering. It covers the bald spot. Cody needs a bigger kippah. He needs one of the big ones, the not Ashkenazi, the other ones. Sephardic. Anyway, the reason why I'm here is to live out Torah in front of you. You're saying that you're sure you're that? No. I'm saying that somebody had the heart to turn the switches on inside of me. And now I'm here to turn the switches on inside of you. That's it. Why? Well, because there's this thing in Judaism. If you've taken our Hebrew class, you'll remember this saying, that to learn for its own merit, to learn simply for its own sake is worthless, is a worthless pursuit. To learn to do and to teach others to do, that is our purpose. We don't teach Hebrew here just so that you can learn Hebrew. And we don't teach Torah here just so you can learn Torah. And we don't teach the Kabbalah here just so you can learn Kabbalah. By the way, it's not magic. It's holiness is what it is. It's lining yourself up with God. And because you're in line with God, He pours His blessing out upon you. Amen, amen. You see, it's like a broken pipe. Pipe that's broken receives no blessing, receives no water, In order to receive the water, what? You have to put the pipe in place, stick it together, so the water can run through. Well, that's what we're doing here. We're pulling the pipes together so that the water can run through. The blessing of God. You want God to bless you? Then be a blessing. That's the way it works. You want the Spirit of God to flow you? Then you flow into others. You allow your spirit to be used to flow into others, and you will be a blessing to others. And guess what? God will be a blessing to you. And the more you're a blessing to someone else, the more God's going to bless you, because you will not outgive God. You will not empty yourself of the blessings of God. You cannot. Because God says He will not allow you to work without pay. And your pay is His blessing on your life. His blessing upon your life. Why do we struggle? Why do we have it so hard in this life? Why did I have cancer? I don't know. Why do I have diabetes? I don't know. Why does my wife have heart problems? I don't know. Why see it all? Now, when He's in the middle of this, teaching us and coming out strong and working for the Lord, and his sword pulled and his shield up high, and He's working with us and He's teaching us and guiding us. He gave me such a break and such a time to rest and recover. Why now? I don't know. Except that it is the will of God, and His will be done. And we accept it with gratitude. Con placer. We accept it. Why? Because I know that the more that I righteously suffer here in this life on this earth, the better the world to come is going to be for me. You do not see the light. You do not understand the light, except first you have been in the darkness. Huh? You do not understand the joy of having a full body until you first experience a damaged one. And so He gives us, He allows the trouble, He sends trouble our way on this earth. Why? I know one reason for sure, so that we might have a better, a more enjoyable life in the world to come. That we might enjoy Olam Haba more. Huh? Like the guy that's been struggling in the ocean. Those people struggling around the ark. Fighting the waves, fighting the current, fighting. And you see the sharks circling underneath, and you see them circling, and they're circling, and there's that fin, and he's going around, and just when you think that it's it, he's coming with his mouth open. Oh, that's Batman, I'm sorry. Jaws, yeah, there you go. Just then you're going down your last time. You're going to go down, and you can't fight your way back up anymore. It's gone. Just at that moment, you hear a voice behind you. Hey! You turn around and a lifesaver lands right at you. And he tells you, grab it! You grab a hold of it, both arms. Huh? There's that rope, and you see that boat there, that man in that boat, and he begins to pull, and he pulls, and he pulls, and he pulls. And you get inside. You know, when the Titanic sank, they say that everyone in that boat was the same. Saying what? Well, you see, on the Titanic, there were a lot of rich people. And there were a lot of poor people. When you were in that ice-cold water, there was no rich person and there was no poor person. There were just drowning human beings that needed to be saved. And whoever climbed into, you may have had a diamond-crusted walking stick before. It's gone now. You get into that lifeboat and you say, I have never felt so good. I have never had such a good feeling, such a peace and a warmth and a happiness within me. Why? Because I'm alive. And that poor beggar climbs into the lifeboat and he feels so good. And he says, I have never had such peace, such goodness, such a warm feeling. Why? Because I'm alive. You see, they're both the same. We're all the same. And we're all in the same boat. And we all need saving. We all need saving. God tells him, Lech lecha, get out. Because you see, already they had become idol worshippers. Father Noah was not even dead yet, and already the majority of his descendants were idol worshippers. In fact, Terah, the father of Avah, was a maker of idols. And this is why God tells him, Abraham, get out from your father's house, from this land, from your father's house to a land I will show you. We need to get out. It's not escapism. We're not some cult that's going to hide ourselves, make our own little village somewhere. It would be nice if we all lived in a community together. But in this day and age, it's very difficult to do. But we're not going to go out and live in some monastery and isolate ourselves. We're not called to do that. We're called to be a salt in this world. We're called to be a light in this world. We're called to go out and to take the message of the gospel of Yeshua Mashiach to this world. Go into all the world and teach all of the men, everyone, the things that I have commanded you. That's why I wear the talit, because God commanded it. That's why we blow the shofar. God commanded it. That's why we read and study Torah, because God commanded it. That's why we strive to live by Torah. God commanded it. But he says, separate yourself. That's what the word holiness means, my friend. To come out from among them and separate yourself and be holy to your God. For as the Lord your God is holy, so we are to be holy. As he is separated, as he does not permit sin. Remember that light. If you were to go into his very essence, you would be destroyed because of the sin and the imperfection within you. Rav Shaul even says, follow me as I follow Yeshua Mashiach. Where I'm not following Yeshua Mashiach, don't follow me there. That gets you into trouble. Have the wisdom, the understanding of what is truth and what is not truth. How do you do that? Read your Torah, understand it. Let it click in your mind. Let things, oh, I get it. I got it. Huh? And so we encounter the story of and Sarai. In a little while, Hashem's going to change their names. Avram, everyone say Avram. Sarai. And he's going to change them. He's going to say, you no longer shall be called Avram, but you shall be called Avraham. Avraham. And she shall no longer be called Sarai, she shall be called Sarah. For from you I will make a great people. What is the difference between Avram and Avraham? Huh? Very good. What is the breath? The letter He. He. Everyone say hey. Like hey. Hey you. Hey. All right? So hey, which is the word for it, which is the symbol of breath. It's the H sound. He takes Avram and he puts an H in the middle of it. He takes Sarai, he takes off the Yud and he puts on an H, a He. Sarah. Because it is breath. Puts the He right in the middle of Avram. Avra. Because God breathed into him the breath of life, and he became a living soul. What? Because Abraham was in his 70s, 80s, 90s, and now 100, and God's telling him, you're going to have a son, you're going to have a son, and he's like, who, me? I can't even walk a straight line. Sarai is in her tent, and she's listening to all of this, and she, that old man, he's going to get me pregnant? Me, the old lady? Because I'm 80 years old. You know, that time has come and gone. You know that Sarai having a son, having a child is actually a double miracle? Because she already could not have a child. That's why they were childless. So her womb is already dead, and now she's beyond the age, and now it's double dead. It's dead and beyond dead. And Abraham, he's old. He doesn't have any seed left. He's no progenitor anymore. It's the bull and the cow that you put out into the pasture. You know, they've done their time. They've done their, you know, they've brought about the production, and now it's their retirement. And so they're both incredulous. What? Yeah. Why? How was it that Abraham was able to bring forth seed, and how was it that Sarah was able to bring forth the egg, and they were able to produce a child who would become the progenitor of Mashiach himself, the father of Mashiach? Yitzhak. Laughter. Why laughter? Because Sarai laughed when God said, hey, believe it or not, and then God said, boom. Suddenly, Abraham was able to walk and run and hop and skip and jump. And all of a sudden, Sarah, she's out there jumping rope and playing hopscotch. And they're teenagers again. And they're frisky again. And they're moon eyes again. And they're holding hands again. And they're smoochy again. And there's Sarah. She's there, you know, and she's and she's blushing, and she's like, "Oh, Abraham, stop! You animal!" Do they have a child? Oh, do they have a child? If God can do that for them, He can do it for you. He's the same God. He cannot breathe into you life. He cannot speak to you life. Not only can He, but He will. He says, you choose. I set before you life and death. Choose life, and you shall live. What? Obey Torah, disobey Torah. Obey Torah, life. Disobey Torah, death. Choose Torah. Choose life. and ye shall live. Our Father, our King, we thank you for this midrash that you teach us this morning, today. Father, help us as we depart from this place and enter back into the realm of the world to remember our holiness. We are a holy people called out to be distinct and to be different. Father, I pray that you would fill us with this will and the strength to do these things and the courage, and help me to stand up and be counted as one who will follow Yeshua as his messenger in this world. Not just by teaching messages and sermons, Father, but by my life, my actions, my words, how people see me. Help us, Father, to be a kind and compassionate people. Help us, Father, to be a people searching for lost sheep to bring into the fold, to go out into the highways and byways and compel them to come in, for the feast of Messiah is at hand. The time of his coming is near. Father, help us in this nation, in this place where we are. You put us here for a reason. Help us to be content, not lusting and longing for other places and other lands, Father, but to reach out to the community that is here around us and to do that which you have placed in front of us to do. And so bless us as we leave this place, but never leave your presence. Never leave your presence. Not by anything of our merit that we could ever say or do, but only through the merit of Yeshua Mashiach. The Imu, let's all stand. Lift up your hands for the blessing. Yevareka Adonai ve'yishmerecha, Ya'er panav elecha v'yihunecha. Yisa Adonai panav elecha ve'yasem lecha shalom. May Adonai bless you and keep you. May Adonai shine his face upon you and be gracious unto you. May Adonai lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace from Sad HaShalom, Yeshua Mashiach, the Prince of Peace, Yeshua the Messiah, the Ilu. Amen. Shabbat Shalom.